Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today we want to discuss various theories that we need to know when we want to build up a unit rate. So the first theory that we need to know, when you want to establish a unit rate for a measured item in a bill of quantities, the following must be considered. The first thing that you must consider is the factor of labor. You must consider the labor that is given, that will be required to do a specific work when you are preparing a unit rate that is to be used in a bill of quantities. Then the next factor is materials. The amount of materials that will be used, the cost of those materials will also consider. Then the next factor is plants or the equipments or the machines that you'll use to do a specific work. Then the next thing that you'll also consider is overheads and profits. What are overheads? Overheads are the cost of running the operations of a business. Yeah, the cost of running the operations of a business. There are operations that are directly related to the project that is being done, and there are those which are not directly related to that project. So those are the overheads. The overheads you must consider, and the profits. The profits is the amount that the contractor or the person that is doing the work is remaining with after clearing all the expenses that he incurred while doing that work. So those are the factors that you need to consider when you are preparing a unit rate that is to be used in the bill of quantity. Yeah. So the next thing that you need to know when you are costing for materials, we all know that materials are the things that are used to do a specific project. Materials are things like cement, sand, nails. Those are materials. Those elements that you'll use to do a specific project. So when you are costing for materials, there are various things that you need to know about materials. Materials have various wastes that should be considered when costing for materials. The first waste that should be considered when costing for materials is the waste on stockpiling. This waste is affecting materials like sand, affecting materials like ballast, and many more. Because these are waste that can be done when you pile something like sand. When there is wind, some will be blown off. So that waste you must also cater for. You don't assume in costing. You don't assume even a single waste. You cater for that waste or that will be blown by wind. You may pile even ballast, and there are heavy rains. Some of the ballast will be swept away by the floods. So that waste, that waste you'll also consider. Then the next waste is cutting wastages. These are wastages that are incurred when installation is done. You want to connect something and you need it into the right sizes. You'll incur some cutting wastes. Yeah. Then the next waste, so cutting waste can affect things like ceramic tiles. It can affect things like steel bars. It can affect things like ceiling boards. When you are cutting a ceiling board, there are some waste, those tiny particles that are dropping from that ceiling board. That waste you must also cater for it, because it was initially part of that ceiling board, so you don't assume it. The next waste is residual waste. These are wastes that are related to liquids. Things like glues, paints, they are residual waste. Okay. The next one is transportation waste. These are wastes that you consider. They are being incurred when materials are being transported from points of collection to the points where they are being used. Things like cement. Cement is always known to be 50 kgs, but when it is transported, the vehicle which will be transporting that waste after removing the cement, the bags of cement from that vehicle, you'll realize that there are some particles of cement that will remain in that vehicle. Those particles, you must also consider them because they were part of that cement. So it is always advised that when you are using a cement, don't assume that it is 50 kgs. Yeah, you don't assume that it is 50 kgs. It is better to measure it so that you can know the exact kg of that cement. So that so those are the transportation waste. So the next waste is fixing, fitting, and installation waste. These are wastages occurring when materials are being put in place. Example, when you are fixing concrete, the precast concrete works, there are some that might break in the process of that of fixing it. So you must also consider that when costing for the materials under waste. The next waste is pilferage and vandalism waste. This is a very key waste, and you must consider for it, because these are what are these waste? They are the waste which are for small tiny things, like nails. You buy nails like 10 kgs, you want to use it, then the fundi who will be doing that specific work may decide to carry some pieces of nails, or he may not do it intentionally. He may put them in the pocket while working. That will at the time he will go home, he will go with the ones which will be remaining in his pocket. So those are the waste. Those wastes are like for the pilferages and the vandalism waste. You must also consider them because we incur them in our daily works. So far, those are the wastes that we need to consider when doing when costing for materials. So the next thing is on concrete works. So when doing concrete works, the concrete works that we know, I think, are this the elements that are making concrete are cement, sand, and ballast. Yeah, and ballast. So those are the three elements that forms concrete works: the cement, sand, and ballast. So you when handling them, you need to know each and every density of each and every element. So density of cement varies from 1435 to 1445 kgs per cubic meter. 1435 to 1445 kgs per cubic meter. So that is the density of cement. So the density of sand varies from 1500 to 1700. 1500 to 1700 kgs per cubic meter. So the density of ballast varies from 1600 to 1800 kgs per cubic meter. So when a question does not specify the density of a given element like sand, cement, and ballast, you need to master these densities so that the density that you'll write will not go beyond the densities, the margin densities that I've given you. So those are the densities that you need to know while doing the concrete works. So there are other ones like when doing for finishes. You know that finishes can be finishes for walls, for floors, for ceilings. So it depends with the one the question specifies. So there are other densities you need to know when doing finishes, the densities for doing finishes. So you need to know the density. Like for lime, what is the density for lime? The density for lime is 700 kgs per cubic meter. Then the density for granite, is 1350 kgs per cubic meter. Then we have gypsum. Gypsum is for tiles, if for ceilings, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, gypsum is for ceiling. When you are doing a ceiling finishes for the ceiling works, you use gypsum. So the density of gypsum is 1000 kgs per cubic meter. And remember, while doing concrete works is measured either in cubic meter or square meters. Yeah, cubic meters or meter square. So that is where those ones we'll consider when doing measurements. When we'll start discussing measurements, we'll know when to consider concrete works under meter square or when to consider it under cubic meters. There are some which are laid down in the SMM, the standard measurement methods of measurements. So that one will know when we are doing works for measurements. Yeah, when we'll begin measurement works. So thank you so much for watching this video, and may God bless you.